The Treasury Department imposes fresh sanctions on Iran, seeking to curb its nuclear and ballistic missile programs, as well as funding of terrorism. One America's Kristian Rouz looks into the newest restrictions.
A new round of sanctions against the Ayatollah regime is targeting Iran's currency system, and Tehran is scrambling to establish a solid contingency plan. The U.S. Treasury blacklisted 6 individuals and 3 companies affiliated with the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps and its contingent in Syria, known as the Quds Force. This comes after American and Emirati security operatives unearthed a multi-billion money laundering scheme ran by Tehran to finance Islamic terrorist activity across the Middle East.
So sanctions are very, very important economic tools that are used for national security and foreign policy. As you know, they're very impactful. That's why they worked in North Korea. They worked in Iran last time. That's why Iran came to the negotiating table.
The U.S. and its Middle Eastern allies are seeking to curb the spread of Iranian influence in the region, which is spearheaded by the Guards of Islamic Revolution, Lebanese terror group Hezbollah, and Shiite militias in Syria, Iraq and Yemen. The Treasury said in order to fund all these groups, the Central Bank of Iran and the Ayatollah regime ran front companies in the UAE to buy US dollars from traders in Iraq and Dubai, transactions deemed a bit more than questionable. The scale of this operation might have amounted to as much as $1 billion per month starting in 2015, the year the Obama administration entered the nuclear deal with Tehran.
A majority of members of Congress voted against the agreement when we were given the opportunity. Most of us opposed it. Some of us opposed it for the very reasons you're talking about, not including ballistic missiles, not dealing with the terrorist activity in the region, including Hezbollah, which obviously is a big issue right now as we talk today with regard to what they're doing in Syria and in Lebanon.
President Trump pulled out of the Iran deal on May the 8th over concerns the deal has failed to contain the Ayatollah regime's policy of waging a permanent Islamic revolution on the rest of the Middle East. The Treasury's recent findings support this claim, while the department's fresh sanctions suggest the US might apply far greater pressure on Iran than it did back in 2012. This as the new sanctions are targeting only part of the Iranian currency and central bank infrastructure, but the restrictions could be extended to the entire Iranian money system with the stroke of a pen.
He could look to reimpose sanctions on Iran's central bank, but leave some wiggle room for the 400 or so Iranian companies that do business with the West.
Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin reiterated the Trump administration's commitment to crack down on Iran's destabilizing activities, but added he does not expect oil prices to go higher. This might suggest a stark contrast from the oil embargo imposed on Iran back in 2012. The Treasury is indeed going after the Ayatollah regime's finances this time.
You heard last night that the President of the United States made some silly and superficial comments. He had maybe more than 10 lies in those comments. Trump will turn to dust, and his body will become food for snakes and ants, and the Islamic Republic will still be standing.
Meantime, the Iranian regime has ramped up its cryptocurrency activities, moving at least $2.5 billion out of the Islamic Republic over the past several days. Iranian Information Minister Javad Azari-Jaromi confirmed the Iranian state-owned Post Bank is working on an experimental cryptocurrency which could potentially allow the Ayatollah regime to bypass US sanctions.
It may be that while America imposes sanctions on Iranian banks, Iranian businesses, if that's not happening with China, maybe we see more trade increasing that way. The worry is that Iran gets ever closer to Russia.
There is also a geostrategic dimension to the intensified Iran woes, as Tehran said it would rely on its trade with China and Russia for investment and trade revenues. However, in the event the US increases its sanctions pressure on the Central Bank of Iran, the country's trading partners could become subject to the Treasury's secondary sanctions. This could mean the pressure on Iran could eventually pass on to other inhumane, corrupt or criminal regimes around the globe.
China continues to spread the worst features of its authoritarian system. The Iranian people continue to suffer at the hands of their leaders. Finally, the Russian government continues to quash dissent in civil society.
The Treasury also said previous sanctions packages imposed on the Ayatollah regime at various points since 1979 would be reimposed after a wind-down period of 90 to 180 days. At the same time, Secretary Mnuchin said the administration is continuing its efforts to enter into a new agreement with Iran on President Trump's terms. Kristian Rouz, One American News.
We can use your help. Call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call today.